And I was telling Pastor right before the service, I almost just crossed my name off the list just because it's like, well, I'm the only old guy on the list. But then I was like, well, I was sort of hoping like Nathan Parcell and a couple other guys somewhere near my age would sign up as well. But then I was trying to get a couple of younger guys to sign up. It's like, well, I guess I can't cross my name out now. But here we are. So Psalm 37. The title of my message that I told David right before we started the service was "Wait Until You Get to Be My Age," and I usually say that saying a lot to people that are obviously like a couple years older than me. But I just had a couple things that happened to me over the past week that made me think back to some times where I was a younger man, or even all the way back to my boyhood. And so now, as an older guy who does have a few years of age on him, I am looking back at things a little bit differently. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. Wait till you get to be my age and see how you look back at things. And so let's read in Psalm 37 and begin in 23, and we'll just read quickly 23 through 25. And it's right on the 2, so I'll stop right before the 5, and that should be my 15 minutes, God willing. So Psalm 37, verse 23, familiar verses, obviously here. But in Psalm 37:23 it says, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. I have been young, and now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread." And that's where the title comes from. I have been young, and now am old. And again, I'm 51. Sometimes I still feel pretty good. Most of the time I feel pretty good. I don't feel old, but technically 51, I mean, I'm not a young man anymore, so to speak. But in this psalm, David's talking about a lot of different things. And we know everything that David is talking about here literally is for the nation of Israel. So we can't claim every single sentence and every single promise. But David's also a prophet, so I think he's prophesying a lot of things, or he's given a lot of good principles that do apply directly to us as the church. And there's a lot of talk in this chapter about judgment, about not envying the wicked, about not getting angry and taking things into your own hand, about the Lord giving you the desires of your heart. And I think we apply all those things as Christians. We think the Lord has those same desires for us, or those same principles that he wants us to live by. So this is coming from a prophet who is prophesying about Israel and about things coming for them, but I think also really directly apply to us. But there's all kinds of talk in here about different things regarding that. But I just want to give a personal illustration and then a few real quick things, and then we'll let the younger men come up and finish the night out here. But as far as a personal illustration, and then we'll get back to the scriptures here, I was at a funeral this past week, and it was a funeral of a relatively young man. It was a cousin of mine who happened to be almost my exact same age. He's 51 years old. And the family was a Christian family. I believe this man was saved, had some rough miles, but I believe he was saved. Like a lot of cousins, we sort of drifted away and went our own ways as, we moved away or got our own families and that sort of thing. But we began to sort of have different lives before that, because the Christian family that he was part of, I'm not here to judge, but there's some things maybe they could have done differently, and maybe stayed in church, and maybe made some different decisions that would have had a different effect on their 5 boys, that I believe all 5 are probably saved. 2 of them dead now. Another one died back in 2008, a younger brother. But anyway, just thinking back to that family and the big influence they had on my family. My aunt, Aunt Joan, is the one that brought my mom to church for the first time as a Catholic believer, my mom. And she heard the gospel at a King James Bible-believing church in Dearborn and ended up getting saved. So that family had a gigantic effect on me. But again, I've got some good memories of going to church together and walking or biking the 2 miles to their house and spending the nights and spending holidays. And my mom and aunt were the only Christians in their Catholic family, so there was a lot of time that we spent together there. But anyway, going to that funeral and just seeing the effect of Christian people being out in the world for a long time, it got my attention. And it made me think of this verse. I was just reading through my Bible, and this verse got my attention again. Verse 23, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. And it just made me think back to some times or some people in my own life that have been good influences on me and had a big effect on me, like my Aunt Joan and Uncle Bobby did while they were still in church, and the good things they did for my family. But it just made me think of that. And so that's what I want to talk about tonight, just for a few minutes here, is some things as an older person looking back and looking at some things in my life, some things that really I'm thankful for. And hopefully when you're my age, you'll be able to look back and be thankful for those same things. So that's what I want to look at tonight. And the first thing that I want to say that I'm thankful for as a 51-year-old man is I'm just thankful for some older, or if you want to say some more mature saints than I am, that have been around for a while. And of course, I think of my own family that I was put in as a baby. My mom got saved right before I was born. That was the period of time that she trusted the Lord. So I grew up my whole life in church. And so I'm thankful for the influence that my mother had as a Christian woman. Had a professing atheist father who gave my mom a extremely hard time about becoming a Christian and going to church. But I had a good mom. So my mom was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. She's still alive now. She's not perfect, like none of us are, but she had a great influence on me, and at least against my dad's will, had us looking at the Bible and Bible lessons and going to church, and that was a gigantic influence on my life. So I'm thankful for that. And as a young man, I would say, like growing up, a teenager, I was in church my whole life with my mom, but then sort of beginning to go out on my own. I'm just thankful for other older examples of Christians that, again, aren't perfect, but I know some older saints who have just been in church forever, and specifically as far as examples in my own life, I think of like Brother Petrie or Brother Waters that I met almost 30 years ago now. The age that they were when I first met them as a young man, I'm way beyond that age that they were now. So, I mean, the years have passed, but almost 30 years. But I can honestly say, and it's a blessing from the Lord that I can have some men like this that I've been able to look at for a long time, for nearly 30 years, and I can honestly say I can't think of a single way that they've changed. They've just stayed serving the Lord and doing what they felt was right for their family. And I don't know every deep, dark secret about their lives or problems they've had. They've had problems, I'm sure, with their family or circumstances, but the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. And verse 24, though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down. So I'm just grateful for some good, godly men that I've been able to see in my life that have just stayed faithful to the Lord. So I'm thankful for that at my age. I appreciate that. And I'll say this again later probably, but that should be the norm. Being able to look at someone and say, you know what? I mean, that person's not perfect. They've made mistakes, and I even know some of them personally, but man, they have just stayed serving the Lord. We should be able to look around and see people like that. It shouldn't be an unusual thing to say, you know what, that person's been in church 20, 30, 40 years, and they really haven't changed as far as what they want to do for the Lord. So I'm thankful as a boy with my mom and as a young man and a newly married young man, just to have some good examples of Christian saints that I was able to look at that are just serving the Lord no matter what happened. And I'm thankful, sort of in the present tense, for some, I guess I would call them middle-aged saints, just going along with these verses here. And it sort of hit me like a brick hit me in the head when the Bartrams and the Golems came around a couple years ago. It just, all of a sudden I realized I'm not like the young family here anymore. I mean, my youngest daughter at that time, I think when they came, was like 14. It's like, they're the young families. I mean, they're the younger people with younger kids. And I mean, maybe Mike Ferris could still be considered a young family because they have Kayla. But it's like, I'm not the young family anymore. That really sort of, it didn't depress me or anything, but it just hit me when I realized that. It's like, I guess it's like I'm in a different phase of life here. But I'm thankful for some good middle-aged, I'll call them, that's probably a bad term, but just for some people that their kids aren't babies anymore, you know, their children are teenagers or beyond college age and all that sort of thing, but they're still faithful to church. Their kids didn't get to a certain age and they just disappeared. They're still faithful, they're still here. I'm just thankful for Christian families that have been around for a while. The parents might be still getting a little bit older, but they're just faithful to church and serving the Lord. And that's a big part of having good Christian fellowship, is having people that have had common goals in the past for their kids as they're raising them, as they're trying to serve the Lord in a good Bible-believing church, and as their kids are graduating or going to college and staying in church. I mean, it's just a blessing to have good Christian families and their children that are staying faithful to the Lord. And that just, again, that just really was brought home to me personally. Just seeing some of the people I saw at that funeral, I haven't seen in 10, 15, 20 years, you know, girlfriends of my cousins or now ex-wives of some of my cousins and their current wives. And I got home and I wasn't depressed at seeing that, but it was just sobering. I told Jennifer, it's just, everybody there just looked so old. And I know 30 years later, I don't look the same either. I mean, I'm aware of that. But it's not just looking older, it's just old and just used up, you know. Used up and worn out and dead. I mean, it's just it's a sad thing. And again, what makes me think of these verses is that it didn't have to be that way. They started out right, but they fell and they didn't get up. And it had, obviously, a big effect. But I'm just thankful in my age that I'm at with my phase of my kids, I've still got other people here in my church that I can fellowship with that still have the same goals. And let's see, I had this verse written down here. 24, we already read. Again, though he fall, he should not be utterly cast down. I've made mistakes. I know other people that are my age in my church have made mistakes, and we're going to fall down, but we don't have to utterly fall down forever. I mean, we get back up and we go on and serve the Lord. So moving on real quick here. So I'm thankful for some older saints. I'm thankful for some good Christians that I can still have fellowship with, sort of the phase that I'm in here. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, obviously, my own kids, but seeing some of the younger families that I was talking about that I'm not part of that group anymore, but like the Bartrams or the Golems or the Parcells or the Stallards. I'm just really looking forward to seeing these families and their kids just grow up and serve the Lord and keep on going like I'm trying to, and like I want my kids to keep trying to. So I'm just really looking forward to seeing what the Lord does with the people of our church here, with the families, the young people of our church. So I'm excited about seeing people grow in the Lord and seeing people remain faithful and seeing people in this church. And again, it should be the norm. It should be the normal thing that kids graduate and stay in church and don't just disappear. It should be the normal thing that people stay in church for years and decades and just try to serve the Lord there. So wrapping up here, I've got to stop for time. But again, I'm just really thankful. It all really comes down to the Lord's mercy. Me being in the family I was, even with my imperfect dad, but my saved mom, that was the Lord's mercy that put me there. You know, I think back and I remember thinking, you know, we don't got a lot of money, and yeah, I mean, Dad's a screamer, and you know, there's problems, and it's not a perfect world, but I knew I had a decent life because I knew being in church was the right thing and that my mom was doing the best that she could. So I appreciated the life that I had. But now looking back at 51 years old, I mean, I thought I had it okay back then, but now I can look back, and even with the problems and imperfections, I can say, man, I thought I had it okay. I knew there was issues, but even with the issues and even with the problems, I had it real good. I mean, my mom stayed in church, unlike some other relatives, and it just ruined the family. Things fell apart. So I can look back and I can honestly just be thankful for the Lord's mercy and how he took care of me. And of course that had an effect on, you know, me and my family and my wife. And so I'll end with this. I won't stand here and say that, you know, more like directed to the young people here. I won't say, yeah, you know, you young people, you don't know what you have, and you know, you don't appreciate it, because I think that you do. I think that you do appreciate what the Lord's given you, what family He's put you in, what church that He's put you in. I think you appreciate that. I think you realize that you got something good. But I will say that later on, you'll look back at my age, and I think that you'll say, man, I knew I had it good, but I didn't know that I had it that good. Having parents that, yeah, they fell down, but they got back up. They weren't utterly cast down. They got up and they served the Lord, and they had an effect on me as their child. So I'm going to end there and just be thankful for what the Lord's brought you through. And again, I'm looking forward to see what the Lord has for